What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mack here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today I am joined for our 100th episode of the Soulful Hunter by one of my most closest and trusted individuals, my actual and physical blood brother, Lucas Mack, the host of the Golden Rule Revolution podcast, and just an awesome individual. Bro, thanks for joining me for my 100th episode, man.
Yeah, brother, it's awesome.
It's so wild to even be able to have this conversation with you. You know, obviously we talk all the time, but to actually record a podcast, it's been a long time coming where it's like, hey, Luke, we should do a podcast together. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. But you're doing yours, I'm doing mine, and life is just happening. But I do want to just acknowledge you that this podcast would not have even happened without the inspiration and influence in which you pointed towards me and saying, hey, why don't you go ahead and start a podcast? And so I want to say thank you so much. And all the listeners, if it wasn't for Lucas right here telling me and sharing with me about him doing a podcast, the Soulful Hunter probably would not have come to fruition. And yet here we are, 100 episodes in, and we are having a wonderful conversation. So, brother, how was your day today?
It was good, busy, and a lot happening, a lot of things going on in the world, a lot of been in a lot of conversations with people, all trying to figure it all out, like we all are. And it's fun. I'm excited. I'm really honored to be on here, brother. I love you. And congratulations on the 100th episode. That's a huge milestone.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I would say we're all trying to find our way. I have being a school teacher and having students, being a PE teacher, and we're being outside, but the school district policy is that children have to wear a mask even when they're outside on campus. And it's like, man, I feel like it's just absolute child abuse that these kids are forced to wear a mask, and the kids look at me, they're like, can I take my mask off? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you yes or no, but I totally believe in you being able to breathe freely. And so um, you go ahead and do whatever you need to do to make sure you take care of your own body, which I think is very poetic in what we're talking about today. Last episode that I recorded and released, episode 98, was identifying what you want. And today's episode, and I'm so glad that you're here for this, because when we advertised the Dawn of Masculinity, the course that you and Johnny L. Sasser put out for the month of May and are going to be doing, we talked about affirmations, but this episode is what you do is not who you are. And so who are you? It's very important. In the last episode, we talked about like what it is we want, but who are we? So often we are told to introduce ourselves, and one of the first questions that we get is, well, what do you do? What do you do for work? And all of a sudden, this is like this defining mantra over our lives of like, this is who we are. And yet it actually isn't who we are. So, bro, go ahead, give a little background to the listeners about what the Golden Rule Revolution podcast is, and then let's dive into this. And don't explain that the podcast is you, but what is the podcast? And then go ahead and share who you stand for and who you are as a human.
Well, bro, let me answer just the podcast. I started back in the end of 2017. I'm a little over 200 episodes in, and it's called the Golden Rule Revolution because I saw this revolution coming in the world. I saw violent revolutionaries starting to rise up, speak out. It was the Occupy Wall Street. It was the World Trade Organization. All these riots were starting to take place in Seattle, where we grew up, in the Seattle area. And I thought, if you want to be a revolutionary of love, be a Golden Rule revolutionary. And so I sought out starting this podcast to treat people like people, talking about what the Golden Rule is. The Golden Rule is not just to do unto others that which you would want done unto yourself. The other side of that is what Hillel the Elder, famous rabbi who lived before Jesus, said, that which you deem hateful, do not do unto another. In this is all the law and the prophets. Go and live. So there's a side of not doing it to another, and then Jesus comes along and says, do unto another. And it's that tension of being aware of what I'm not doing and what I'm doing to everyone around me at all times. Am I walking in love? Am I showing love? Am I allowing other people to feel safe enough to share their truth, and from their truth become free souls, free beings, free bodies, free, and stop living in this confined, pseudo-safe, false pretense of religion and family structures and politics and work. And this goes into the whole concept of what. There's 5 questions that make a story: who, what, when, where, and why. Who, what, when, where engage the mind. The only question that engages the heart is the question why. This is why children ask why all the time. Why? 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 Because it gives context to the facts that they're observing. Society has done a really good job of reducing humanity down to the what, the particular. What do you do? And no one gives a shit what someone does. Truly, what we're trying to figure out is, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? We're trying to calibrate this person, but what they do is irrelevant. If it's the most impoverished human on the planet, but they're the most fascinating human on the planet, does that matter? If they're the most wealthy, exuberant, affluent human on the planet, but they're a real dick, do you want to be around them? No, it doesn't matter what someone does. What we're trying to figure out is, do I like this person? Can I know this person more deeply, and can I trust this person ultimately? And so what I like to do is, coming because I was a TV reporter and a journalist for a long time, those 5 questions are always in my mind of who, what, when, where, why. Who, what, when, where, why. That's a story. But I like to say it's not the particular what, it's the universal what. It's the objective. What are you about? What are you here for? And I ask people all the time. I had 2 calls today, and I asked both of these people. I shocked one of the people on the call. But I always ask the same question: what would you crawl bloody knuckled over a broken field of glass to accomplish? Stop talking to me about stupid crap. I don't want to hear it. Like, what are you about? What are you here for? You here to be a compliant, go along to get along person? You're here to make a difference in this world? You're here to liberate others? You're here to be complicit to whatever? I mean, I like to ask people those real deep questions of what the universal what. What's your mission? What are you here for? Um, so the Golden Rule Revolution podcast is now morphed into bringing all sorts of different souls, spiritual teachers, humans, and just talking about their journey. And at the end of the day, it's about treating people like people and nothing less.
That is so beautiful. I love the universal what, because it also goes right into what this podcast stands for, and that is transforming lives through primal adventure. That is
That's right.
the what of Soulful Hunter. What
That's
we
right.
are about. We are about inspiring people to make themselves and make their lives and their future better. Better
Mm,
than their past, better than their current circumstances, and to always be gaining ground in this, in not necessarily race to the end, but just gaining ground and advancing their selves, their mind, their spiritual self, their soul, so that we can then be better husbands, better fathers, better, for the female listeners, better spouses, better mothers,
better,
coworkers, friends,
yeah,
better humans,
yeah.
all through an action of going hunting and experiencing what it's like to take care of yourself and take a life, and then what that does as a teaching moment for you as an individual. So
Mm,
I love that. I love that. So here you are, you host a podcast, but what you do is not who you are.
no,
So when someone says, "Hey, Lucas Mack, who are you?" How do you go about answering that?
yeah. I say, um, I always say that I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm on a mission to see the hurting get healed and the healed go out and heal others. And I do that through speaking. I do that through working. I have a W-2 job that supports me to do life coaching with people, lead men's retreats, host a podcast, do keynote speaking. But those are just all extensions of my personal mission to see the hurting get healed and the healed go out and heal another. And so I always answer with my mission. And I'm a liberated soul, and I'm on a mission to liberate other souls.
That is a beautiful thing. I had, there's so often in life we get caught up in this identity of what we do is who we are. And my background, but a lot of the listeners don't actually know my background. They've heard me talk about that I played college sports and that I was an athlete, and I've done a lot of different things in my life. But when I was going around and being recruited to play college football, and I'd go to these different universities and they'd have you stand up and introduce yourself. And so I'd stand up and I'd say, "I'm Johnny Mack. I'm a quarterback from Kamiak." And everyone would start giggling because it just rhymes, especially when you say it, with a cadence and all that stuff. And then
Yeah.
football came to an end
I
because
remember the day.
sports are not forever and sports are not life. And yet I found my identity of who I was in the action in which I was doing.
Mm,
And so when that got taken away without my choice, my decision, my life came to a screeching halt, and I felt absolutely devastated because I put so much weight and credence into what I did defining who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it just so fascinating that I would say a majority of society doesn't pause and reflect as to who they actually are. Who are we? Who are we? What do we stand for? What do we believe in? What do we want to be? What are we working towards? And that is something that for me that was like a light bulb moment, even though I didn't recognize it until years later, to identify that I put so much credit into something that I did that could be taken away. Now it's just like what you said, is like, I am a father, I am a husband,
Mm-hmm.
I am a person who loves other people and wants to set their souls on fire.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the soft breeze that blows on that ember so that their soul will be ablaze for something to then go and make a better world and be the light in the darkness.
Yeah. Well, I think people are seeking validation from what they do because they're looking for love from parents and family structures that were never intended to give them the love. The love that we are looking for can only come from within. And until we stop and say, no more, no more am I going to prove my worth to someone who, even if I got it, I don't even care. Because that's not enough to satiate my lack of love in myself, the lack of love receiving from God, the lack of love for me, whether I was burnt in a wheelchair, living, breathing out of a straw the rest of my life. That soul still craves 100% pure love, 100% pure, unadulterated, unconditional, infinite love. And I cannot get that from any other person. I can't get it from my spouse now, nor my children, nor any parental or family structure. That can only come from me and within. And once I woke up to that, it freed me from everything, everything. And I think most of society is still trying to prove. I did a coaching call earlier tonight. This beautiful soul, this man, 31-year-old father, um, talked about he was the youngest of three boys. His dad, it was never good enough. Even if he got 100%, he could have done better. It was just never good enough, never good enough. And I relate so much to that. Never good enough. And he doesn't have a relationship with his dad. I said, well, who did you look up to? And he said, I looked up to my grandfather, but he died early on, and it just broke my heart. And I said, was that your dad's dad or your mom's dad? And he said, my mom's dad. I said, okay. Now, who is your dad's dad? He said, oh, he had a separate family. He had two families and wasn't around and was a real jerk and all this stuff. I said, okay, now think of this. Your dad was trying to get the love of his father and prove to his father's other family that he was better than that other family. And he did that in the form of putting it on you and your brothers.
Mm.
But amazingly, your father's soul and your mother's soul had a contract that he would get a father figure in his father-in-law, and you would have a few years to see what a beautiful man was for you to now be a father in your own life. And he was like, dude, that's so deep, but that's the truth. And I said, and it doesn't even matter if you got that validation from your dad. You have always been, and this is going to sound super weird to everyone listening, but I want you to track with me for a second. I said, you've always been your own mother and father. You were the one that nurtured yourself. You're the one that picked yourself back up. You're the one that spoke to yourself in the morning. You're the one that got back out there. You're the one we have always been our own mother and father. And until we understand that the love of ourselves comes from ourselves, we're always going to be looking from an external source, an external validation, the next job, the next promotion, the next family. And guess what? We could have it all, and it still matters not.
And
So what we do doesn't matter. It's who we are, and can we receive love, and can we give that love to other people?
it's really interesting, and it sets you up for disappointment constantly.
100%. You can't satiate that fire. You always have to fuel that fire. That's right.
And you're always going to be moving on, looking for something else and something else
Yep.
and something else.
Yep.
until you can stand still
Yep.
and be 100% in alignment of knowing who you are and
That's,
and what you want to do in this world.
that's right. 100%.
What are some of the things that you do to practice that? Or how did you even come to this realization in which it was like, okay, if I don't end up loving myself, none of this else matters.
Um, I I was at a retreat and I was meditating, and it just came to me clear as day that I've always been my own mother and my own father. I always nurtured myself. And once I had that realization, something like the tap, there was like so like the ground underneath me became firm rock instead of sand. And once I could stand on that, I'm like, oh, I'm free. I'm free now that I'm not looking at a previous generation who may or may not have done their best, who may or may not have had good intentions. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Now I can look at, okay, I've always been with me. I've been with me as I go to sleep at night. I've been in my head. It doesn't matter. I've been married for almost 15 years. And still, no one knows me like me. No one knows any of us like us. So I've always been that person for myself to, the chaos and we grew up in, and like go to school, still smile, you still buck up, you still got to take your test, you still got to play sports, you still got to play the game. And so I was the one that did that for myself. And once I realized that, it took the pressure off looking for anyone else, even my wife. And another thing about that, I'll just share this, is that at that same retreat, my wife said that you say your love language is words of affirmation, but you're like a bathtub without a drain plug. So I can fill it up, but it just empties right away. And I would remember looking at her in her eyes, and I saw the rejection that I had caused from not receiving her love. And my greatest fear was I was going to be killed growing up. That was my fear. And so I had to really look at her and say, what does it mean if I truly became 100% naked, unadulterated, vulnerable, standing before her, and have the courage to say, I'm going to drop this last piece of armor, but I'm willing to receive your love, even if it costs me my life. And I remember looking at her, realizing that the greatest act of love I could give her was to receive her love. And the greatest act of love I can give myself is to receive the love of God. And in that, I'm never empty. In that, I'm never dry. In that, there's not a human on this planet that can give me love. My wife could say nice things or not nice things. I still receive love from God. I still receive love from all that is. And I wish that on everyone. It is such a freeing, beautiful, it's changed my life radically, radically.
It is an extremely powerful thing, and yet it's something that people don't really know how to practice very often. For
Yeah.
me, the best way in which I affirm myself and love myself is when I do my physical exercise and I actually speak out loud while I run. I So
Yeah.
I like to run in the morning, and I like to either talk out loud, or I'll even get to a point where I'm yelling out loud. I kind of feel like Rocky Balboa running up the steps of the library in Philadelphia. Only for me, it's just like running with my arms straight up in the air, but my hands wide open, and being like, I am. And I speak these affirmations over myself. And one of the biggest things that, I have this contract, and I am a powerful, inspiring, loving leader. And I know my contract, and I get to say my contract. And before I even get to my contract, over this last year, this coronavirus, this fear that has just permeated society. And, if any of you listeners have read the Bible, and you start reading about the book of Revelations and the mark of the beast and all these different end times things that get really hairy and scary, and and can get people and cause people to be a little uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it's like a slap to the face of reality to be like, okay, well, how brave are you? How courageous are you?
Right. That's
And
right.
then what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I can't be the scared little boy of who I was, always looking for parental safety or outside safety. At some point, I need to be the man of my household. I need to be the man for myself, and no one is going to come save me other than myself.
No one. And you know what? If you, plural ye, if we, humanity, wants to continue to look for an external salvation, an external hero, well, guess what? There's always people willing to be that. There's always people, the narcissists, that are willing to look. We can make millions of dollars right now if we started a church. We can make millions of dollars right now if we started a religion. We can make millions of dollars talking about some form of here's how you get saved and find safety and find the truth and find all these things outside ourselves. People are willing to sell that card all day long, but it is rare to find the courageous individual that says it all begins and ends with me, no one else. No one is my authority above me. No one is less than me. I am a sovereign being standing on my own 2 feet with my own decisions. No family name, no family structure, no religious structure, no belief structure, no political structure. Nothing dictates my sovereignty, my choice, and my own healing. And look, if religion, politics, philosophy, medicine, all these different forms and modalities of power structures on the earth were true, and I mean universal truth to make us free, then we'd be free. But we're not free, so they're not true. And the truth is the only one that can liberate and save our own soul is ourself.
You know, that always reminds me of a Bible verse, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 10. It says, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe.
It is safe. It's the name that is safe, not them.
Yeah.
This is where all the other Bible versions say the name of the Lord is a strong tower, the righteous runneth into it, and they are safe. No, it's not about the individual. It's about the name of the Lord is safe. And we can choose to walk in that name, to walk in love, to walk in light, to walk in truth, to walk in freedom, to walk in these things, or not. But it's the name, and not the individual, because the individual has to choose whether they will or will not walk in them.
Yeah. Which goes back to the affirmations of what I say to myself when I run, because I'm like, I am courageous. I have it written on my mirror in my bathroom, because there are moments over this last year and in my past where I know I want to be courageous, but wanting to be courageous and being courageous are two completely different things. You know, in the world of guns and gun safety, law enforcement, and military tactics, they always say you fall back upon your training. You don't fall forward.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so wanting to be courageous is a lot different than I am courageous. I am a strong tower. I am a place of safety. I am safe. I create safe space for my people around me, my community.
Well, anytime we're in want, we're in lack. Anytime we're in want, we're in lack. So we either can choose to say I am, or we can say I want. And if it's I want, then who gives it to us? Then we have to make conditions. Then we have to compromise or seek it out. But everything exists right now. What we speak becomes our reality. God created us to co-create with him. He spoke in Genesis and it was so, and he gave us the same authority. That's why Jesus said, life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Most people are speaking death to themselves, scarcity to themselves, lack to themselves. I want $1 million. I want to retire. Well, guess what? You're never going to have it in the now moment when you speak like that to yourself. But I am free already. I already can choose whatever I want. I am receiving all the abundant blessings that are available to me right now. And no denomination, doctrine, government, dictate, mandate, nothing can change the fact that I am standing on my own 2 feet with my own decisions, with my own mind and my own sovereignty. I'm a free, liberated soul, baby. And it's time that people are waking up to this, but there's also so many people stuck in fear. And my invitation to everyone listening, even if you're triggered with this religious, if you're heavy into the religious world, I honor that. I understand it. To live is Christ and to die is gain. So it's either going to walk in freedom here or you're going to find freedom afterwards. But either way, it's freedom. So my invitation is to come out of the fear, because perfect love casts out all fear. So there's nothing to be afraid of in perfect love.
Really interesting statement about that is people don't understand what perfect love is. And for me, I was you and I were indoctrinated in our family about judgment. You have to look, you have to act, you have to speak, you have to be a certain way.
You have to
believe a certain way. And so if it wasn't like that, it was always this mentality of like, oh, how is it going to be viewed? What are others going to think? What are others going to think? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And until you reach that conclusion that you get to be whoever you want to be,
that's right.
As long that you are doing it
walking in love,
in love and
that's
truth, right, then it doesn't matter. And so
I wrote the other day, staying true to yourself is worth everything, even if it costs you everyone.
Yeah.
And someone wrote, that's a hard truth. I say, yeah, it is. But you can stand on it. Oh.
But it's so true. It is so true. I feel like Maximus in the movie Gladiator, where he's standing there, where he's like arms out, and like, "Are you not entertained?" I feel like being like with my window down, driving down the road, or when I'm walking. What are you so afraid of?
Yeah.
What are you so afraid of?
Yeah. And it's a test right now of anytime someone backs up this fear narrative, they are complicit to tyranny, period. They haven't released the suicide numbers of 2020 yet. You know why? Because more kids committed suicide than any time in U.S. history. The suicide rate was already higher than it's ever been in 2019. And anytime someone backs up this narrative of fear and compliance and go along to get along. Remember they said last year, I wear a mask for you, you'll wear a mask for me. But now you're driving in Washington State, it says vaccinated or not, still mask up. It's all compliance. And the government's going to take it to the furthest extent until people say no. Fuck no.
Yeah.
No. No then, no now, no tomorrow, no. And here's the thing with people's belief structures and this fear-based, weak compliance group think. If you can't hold the person giving you dictates accountable, they are not your equal. They are your master.
Yeah.
So complying to these ridiculous, asinine, tyrannical, freedom thieving narratives will only lead people down a road where they wish they never took the initial step. And it takes the courageous soul to say, I'm not going down that current.
Right.
And you have to be willing to decide, are you willing to apply the same force to me that I'm willing to apply back to you if you force something against my will.
Yeah.
And I know that these fear-based narrative people are not. And our invitation is to come out of the shadows, come out of the fear. We'll stand with you. You want to be safe? You're safe in courage. You're not safe in complicity.
Right. Yeah, and call it what it is, whether it's cowardism, and like, hey, it's okay to acknowledge what it is, because when you get to acknowledge what it is, then you get to overcome it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's a blessing. And going back to what you said about, being able to say no now, no then, no ever. How often do people love to be surrounded by yes men?
Oh, man.
Yes people. Because that yes man is that outside affirmation.
Yeah.
It's someone else affirming who you are, and like, hey, we should do this. Oh, yes, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
Guess what? The narcissist, the sociopath who could give a shit about anyone else except for everyone around them validating their decisions, will take everything from you when you keep saying yes to them. Everything. Your identity, your soul, your life, everything. These people have no conscience because they don't care, because nothing can come back to them and hold them in repercussion. So they get away with it when people think, oh, these people are just like me. They're not like you, because you are saying yes and they would never say yes to you.
Right.
They would never say yes to you. They're in the position they're in because they want people to say yes to them.
Yeah.
It's sick. It's like Jesus telling them the brood of vipers, calling the Pharisees and the Sadducees out. Who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? You better have fruit worthy of repentance. Did you come to repent? No. So don't claim that you're of this authority, or you come with this backing or this degree or this knowledge, or I have this. It doesn't fucking matter. Are you here to humble yourself and all be in one humanity, or are you here to be the master of the few?
Right. Well, I love what you just said right there, because we're not necessarily talking about the coronavirus and what's going on in the politics of this world, and yet here it is that people will say, "Well, I'm a doctor." This person,
So is Joseph Mengele. Who fucking cares what your degree is? You don't know me better than I know me.
right?
And unless you were there with the patent in 2004 on the coronavirus by the CDC, you don't know what's in that. So don't tell me you do your degree. Who cares? Your degrees mean nothing. Just like the Masons and their degrees, 32nd degree, you get selected for a 33 degree. We don't care about your degrees. They mean nothing. This whole Masonic crazy ass system that society has been ignorant to, when there's I'm a doctor, who cares? You might be the dumbest person I've ever seen in my life. I don't know. Just because you got a degree and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm sure it's harder for you to go against all that indoctrination to get your doctorate. Yeah, I'm sure that's a difficult and humbling pill to swallow.
And yet people just surrender their free will to other people as like, well, this is what is told to be best for you, because you don't know what's best for you.
The science. You know what? There's not one medical peer-reviewed journal about mass scientifically working to block any virus. So there's the science for you. But do you trust science? Yeah. You mean the methodology to observe the natural world?
The ability to be able to repeat a scenario over and over and get the same result.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point now, and I don't know where I'm taking this podcast. I'm sorry if I'm not taking this podcast too crazy, but I'm at this point now, dude. If I don't know your browsing history and I don't know what money's flown into your bank account, get the F out of here. I'm not going to listen to anyone that I don't know who's funding them, where their family works, who are their families getting money from, who's nudging them, who's bumping them, who's showing up at an event to say, hey, stay in line.
Yeah.
Listen, give me a break. This whole thing is, we're talking about what people do is not who they really are, and yet people keep coming at us with what they do. It's like that's a virtue. Like, bro, I don't care, not you, bro, but generic, bro. Like, I don't care what you do.
Right. Because it doesn't define who they are. What
Yes.
you do is not who you are.
Right.
Man, it's so beautiful. It's like and if all you listeners out there don't take a moment to like stop and be like, whoa, there's a lot of information delivered right there. And I'm not saying that Lucas knows it all or I know it all or that we know it all. The thing is that we're willing to look at it. We're willing to go this route. I walked into a store because I don't believe in wearing a mask. I'm not a fan of it for a lot of reasons. For the trauma in which it brings up for me in my own past of being silenced in my own home, to what it represents.
You don't want
to. Simply being forced to do something that I do not want to do. And so, I walked into the store and they were like, "You need to put a mask on." And I was like, "No, I don't." And they're like, "Yeah, it's the CDC. We follow CDC guidelines." And I was like, "Yeah, they're guidelines. They're not law." And you know what else the CDC does for guidelines? Zombie apocalypse. Oh, well, that was just a joke. Oh, so how do I know that the CDC is putting out things?
Do they know?
Yeah, how do you know? And how do I know that this is a joke or that's not a joke? Because either it's all a joke or it's all 100% real. You can't have it both ways in being a governing body of information. And so I didn't get an opportunity to say that because I didn't come across all this information at that time. But I'm like, what the heck, man? You want to force people to do something against your will? How about I hold you down to some dog shit and have you eat that?
Oh, yeah, you want to be forced against your will? Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what it is. And then they'll be like, well, it is have a heart. Have a heart. It's about other people's safety. You can't love others until you love yourself. The minute that you are able to stand in who you are and take care of yourself is the minute that you're able to be better for everyone else.
And I'll tell you right now, the safety of others is better left in their own hands than it is left in the hands of government. Because you can look the past 100 years, the past century, of how many tens of millions of people have been killed at the hands of government. Way more than they have ever been killed at the hands of any virus. So don't tell me the safety of others is me not complying to this garbage when the real danger and threat to others is government. And how do you define government? Those who hold the gun. Those who threaten your life, who can threaten everything and take everything away. And that's what we're really talking about. We're not talking about being sick. Our freaking immune systems are incredible. But we're talking about being afraid of being killed one way or the other. And the guy, I forget who it is, and we can look it up after, you can put it in the show notes, but at the Nuremberg trials, they asked one of the Nazis, how did they get the Germans to go along with the Holocaust? And he said, it was simple. It wasn't about indoctrinating them to Nazism. It was about getting them to be so afraid. And if you could get them to be so afraid, they knew that they could get them to go along with anything.
Yeah, it said it had nothing to do with Nazism.
Yep.
All the government had to do was to create something that people were so fearful of that they would do anything to stay away from it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And, I'm a truly live and let live. Truly live and let live. However, it has to go both ways. It has to be that which you deem hateful, do not do unto another, and do unto another that which you would want done unto you. And if I was encroaching on someone else's liberty, I would expect them to stop me. Therefore, I will stop them.
Say that again. Say that again, because that needs to be repeated.
If I was encroaching on someone else's liberties, I would want them to stop me. Because it might be by accident. It might be by ignorance. It doesn't have to be by force. It's simply saying no. I might have walked on a property I didn't mean to, or, it could be intentional, it could be accidental, but I would expect someone to tell me no. Therefore, because I want that done to me, I will do that to another and say no.
Yeah. I want to add to this because that is so poetic and beautiful that when we're talking about the topic of what you do is not who you are, you need to identify the what do you want. And what do you want also means what do you stand for. And when you stand, it means what you're not willing to bend a knee to. It also means what you're willing to sacrifice for, because freedom doesn't come free. It is, you always have to trade something or give something up to gain something. That's how freedom works. So there's a saying that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how.
Yep. Friedrich Nietzsche said that. Yep.
So with that being said, when you identify your why, we started off this podcast with the who, what, where, when, why. Who, what, where, when, and why. And he who has a why to live can bear almost any how.
Yeah. And my why is seeing people awaken to their own sovereignty, to break all generational cycles, to break any form of trauma, to come out of the shadows of fear and compliance and groupthink and codependency and manipulation and narcissism and gaslighting and tyranny of any form, be it religious tyranny, be it political tyranny, be it familial tyranny, which we know well. All of the above. And say, come out of it. You can be free the minute you choose freedom. You are free, because who the Son sets free is free indeed. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, God dwells in light. God is light and God is love. So when we walk in love and we walk in light, there the Spirit of the Lord is, and there we are free. That is what we are intended to do from the very beginning. Mankind was created to walk in the presence of the infinite and unconditional love of God. And when we forget that, and when we believe these narratives and doctrines that we're lesser than, we're sinners, we're broken, we're a mess, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a loser, I'm an idiot, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? You are going to live all that you speak and believe of yourself. But when you walk out of that and leave that Babylonian teaching to keep everyone subjected to tyranny, you realize, wait a minute, the sparrow doesn't worry about where it's going to get food. The tree's not worried about life. It's just being and receiving. It's releasing all that is. It's receiving all that is. It's in harmony with all that is. That's the truth. Psalm 1:1 says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law does he meditate. Oh, meditation? Yeah, meditation in the law of the Lord day and night. And he shall be like a tree
planted
by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season, that whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. So the person who prospers is the one who detaches from the way of the sinners, the seat of the scornful, the blessed man walking on the counsel of the ungodly, way of the sinners, the seat of the scornful. But the one who is blessed detaches, plants himself firmly into this natural world, the earth, this beautiful garden that God has given us, and to stand like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bringeth forth his fruit in season, and doesn't concern himself with whatever anyone says, just receives and releases, releases fear, receives love. This is the free soul. And this is not about religion. This is not about spirituality. This is not about belief structure. This is simply nature, because you can look outside right now to any tree and it is not concerned with anything but being.
Yeah.
That's truth.
And when you're not concerned about things, that means whatever is said to you, specifically words, because judgment, people are so afraid of judgment.
Yep.
It's just feedback. And feedback is neither negative nor positive.
Yep.
However, if it sticks to you and it kind of says, ow, that hurt a little bit, or, ooh, I don't like this, then that's something in which you get to identify and release.
That's right.
That's where the growth comes from, for you to be able to move forward. It's also why I believe it's so powerful for people to learn how to hunt and learn how to get into nature and to be one with nature, immerse yourself, be a participant in it, not just an observer.
Right.
Man,
it makes you grateful. It makes you grateful. I came back from our last hunt just so grateful for the supply chain, grateful for pillows, grateful for sheets, grateful for soft bed, grateful for all the things that I have. And I wasn't concerned about what I don't have. I was thankful. God, thank you for all of this, everything.
Yeah.
When you go out into the woods and hunt, whether you get an animal or not, you leave with gratitude.
Yes. I had that just shoved down my throat a couple different times this last year when, you expectations arise, or, you want to manifest certain things. And at the end of the day, you always get what you always need. And what a lot of people need is to learn that gratitude. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's right. A day afield is better than none at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh man, it's so beautiful, so powerful. So powerful. I love you too. I'm so honored that you get to be here and we get to be in community together. It's powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. It's awesome.
What are some of the things in which you would encourage people to practice or try or start doing to help them overcome or support them overcoming anything that's holding them back?
Well, two things. And it's something I do every single day without fail. And I'm being literal. And it took me a long time to practice it. But in Judaism, the very first prayer is called the Moedani. And the very first prayer upon waking, not getting up, not brushing your teeth, not doing anything, literally the very first moment of conscious awareness, you thank God for returning your soul within you with compassion and loving kindness. Because they say, and this is Joe Rogan's done many podcasts about it, it's funny. It's like, sleeping's weird. Everyone's afraid to die, but they're not afraid to sleep. It's like, I'm going to check out and be my most vulnerable and go into this REM state. And where are we? Are we dreaming in our minds? Are we there? Where's the soul? Judaism talks about the soul is closest to death in sleep, and it is a gift that our soul is allowed to return back into our body. So the very first prayer I say every single morning, this is what I say specifically. I thank you, God, for returning my soul within me. I thank you for my wife. I thank you for my children. I thank you for my bed. I love my bed. I thank you for my pillows. I thank you for the house that I'm in. And I get up and I go. And that has drastically forever changed my life. And I do not get out of bed until I say that. And it took probably a month for me to I forgot. And I'd say it when I'm walking out of the room, or I'd say it, when I was downstairs. But I'm at the point now, I wake up every single morning. I thank God for just returning my soul within me. Just being consciously awake is such a gift. And then the second thing I would encourage every single person listening to step into is to say this mantra. And this is what I teach every coaching client that I have, every men's retreat I lead, every course that I teach, this mantra: I release fear, I receive love. I release fear, I receive love. I release fear, I receive love. And say it over and over and over and over again. Our heart is a two-chambered organ, and the two chambers constantly releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving. All of nature is releasing, receiving, releasing, receiving. The only thing that doesn't release and receive at different times is fire. It's the only thing that receives and emits at the exact same time. So when we are in that cadence of nature to release and receive, 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 that helps us catch the fire. Because the fire, like you're saying, already is inside of us. Now we're allowing that oxygen, that flow, that essence, that trueness, our expression of ourselves to get fanned, and we awaken. And something happens where there's a power that cannot be taken. And it's beautiful.
And to build off of that, there's purity within the fire. And the fire is when we become one.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's right.
It's when we return to the fire. When our souls, our bodies return to the fire, we are at one.
I love that.
Man.
I love that.
Powerful. Take it to church, boys and girls. Let's go.
Come on now. Oh man.
How can people?
And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and anyone listening, any trigger, anything that I've said, John said, we've said together in this that triggers you has nothing to do with us. Has everything to do with something inside you. And I'm saying this in love, because at the end of the day, we can either look at life as a window and look through it and blame every single person for our life and the things that we see, or we can be a responsible, accountable leader and look at everything as a mirror. And whatever I see is a reflection of something inside me. And so if you're triggered, I'd say look within. What point as a child, were you intimidated, threatened, hurt, scared? Did someone, if you didn't believe the right thing, or you didn't fit in, or you were outcast? And this is all about trauma. This is all about looking back. It's all about looking within. It's all about freeing yourself so that there are no triggers anymore, that you can sit with whoever, whenever, wherever, and talk about whatever and be free.
Yeah. True that, and truth to that. The beauty of us just being. We are. I am. You are. It's no longer what you do is who you are. You are because you are.
Yeah.
And you get to just take a deep breath and relax and enjoy the ride. And if you don't enjoy the ride, then you get to take action to do whatever it is that you need to do in order to enjoy the ride.
That's right. That's right.
And to make sure that ride is safe for you and safe for others. Brother, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you? How can, if they want to invest in their own selves and dive into more personal coaching with you, or even, checking out your content, where can they find you at?
You can go to my website, lucasmack.com. Find me on Instagram. I post a lot of content on Instagram, and love to support anyone. And freedom on, as my brother says, freedom on. And stay soulful.
That's right. Freedom on. But
freedom on, man.
Hey, the ultimate price. Be willing to sacrifice, because it's better to live free than to die a slave.
And Leonard Ravenhill said, just about sacrifice, he said, the altar that receives no sacrifice receives no fire.
There you go.
There you go.
Which goes along perfectly with you can't outgive good, because when you give good out into the world, it only stokes the fire more and allows more opportunity for it to grow and get bigger and yada, yada, yada. It's so beautiful. So much good stuff. This has been the 100th episode, ladies and gentlemen, of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, as you got to hear the heart and soul of my brother, Lucas Mack. And guys and everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, everybody, freedom on and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.